Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, which features interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, without further ado, I'll hand you over to your host, Holly Wharton.
Hello and welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, episode 94. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm here with today's special guest, Sonia Brown MBE. Sonia is a business communicator, Uber connector, coach, trainer, and writer. Diversity maverick with over 20 years in marketing, branding, and life skills development. She's an authority on many areas of business, leadership, sales, and marketing, as well as supporting individuals to achieve success in all areas of life. Welcome, Sonia.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Holly.
I'm so excited to have you today. Why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about your background and your business journey? Because I've heard you speak a couple of times and you're just so inspiring that I'd love to have you share a little bit with our audience.
Okay, well, as I've said in the past, I had no formal career track, really. I went to a good school, did my O-levels and A-levels as was required, and went off to college to do fashion and design. And absolutely hated it because I didn't like the concept of being a poor art student. So that on the head straight away. Then went into work for companies. And I think my big break came when I went to work for a global company and absolutely just positively didn't fit in with my department. And I had a very autocratic boss. And based on that experience, and I must admit it was probably the longest job, which is my just over broke experience. It was the longest experience I had formally. And I spoke to my mentor at the time, and she's just said, create your ideal job, which was my network, the first network which I started, which is the National Black Women&rsquo. And she just said, if it doesn't work, just get a job doing the same thing. So that was over, I think in 1999 I started. And the concept was, if it didn't work, I could always go back to my job after a year and just go back in as a temp. I never looked back. And I would say, taking that leap of faith, looking back now, it was just something I had to do. There's this expression, there's a fire in your belly, and you just have to do it, no matter how sensible you try to be. You just, I've got to do this, I don't care, I've got no safe. Well, I think my safety net was the fact that I could come back in a year's time. Mm-hmm. But the reality was, I just had to do it, even though I didn't have the experience. And I must admit, within a year of setting up, or 2 years of setting up the National Black Women's Network, I always share this, that we used to get lots of calls saying, I'm not black and I'm not a woman and I want to come to these events. So we set up our Let's Talk business. And about 5 years ago, we set up our Sistatalk, which is our sort of Facebook version where members can come and talk to each other virtually, which is doing quite well. So it's been a really sort of organic growth, but it's been fun, it's been interesting, it's been dynamic, and as the interview goes on, we can talk about some of the experiences we had. But really, it's just been an amazing experience. And I always say to people, just feel the fear and do it anyway.
That can be really challenging for some people sometimes. It's like they have this dream and they really want to do it, but it's like, oh, it's such a big change. So how did you overcome that fear, and how did you get over those challenges of building this network that you had no idea how to do?
I think one of the biggest challenge was actually you were going out doing something that nobody has ever done before in your mind. Mm-hmm. This is the first time, so you've got no guides and no idiots, the idiot's guide to doing this business. It's not there. You're the idiot. You're going to have to create the book. And I think understanding your fears, because we have a lot of fears and we need to understand what it is. So is it a fear of criticism? Is it a fear of success? Is it a fear of people talking about you? Is it a fear of anything? Because we can have these fears that are so deep-rooted, a fear of risk, a fear of lack of finances. So once you can identify, well, what am I actually scared of? Mm-hmm. Then I can manage it and maybe overcome it. But if I know it's there, you can manage that process better. So my fear of failure was that, I cannot fail, means that it's a driver. And I was thinking about this. It's your culture, it's your upbringing, it's the filters that matter to you, your motivators. So my thing is I cannot fail. I'm going to do it well. I have to do it well. So that's a driver. I turn a negative into a driver. So it was understanding my fears. But more importantly, I think it was having that self-belief that actually, if you really, really want this to work, Sonia, you will do whatever it takes to make it work. And the best advice I got from my mentor was, be careful of the people around you. And that proved to be very valuable advice.
Oh, did you have any challenges with people around you?
Well, it was interesting. I was thinking about this. It's mainly family and friends because they're a paid job. So no matter what happens, they get paid on the 28th. So why would you leave your job and your cost code and your expenses to set up an uncertain business? So they just couldn't get their head around it. And as far as they were concerned, I was having far too much fun to be running a business. So they didn't really take it seriously. So I didn't get the support I really needed from my friends and family because they're not in business. So what it taught me to do was create a new support structure, which has been fantastic because they get it. They get when you're happy, so you can share the joys. But when you're struggling and feeling insecure, you can pick up a call and you don't have a pity party. You just say, this is what's wrong. I'm feeling insecure. I'm feeling vulnerable. What do I need to do? And based on their experience, because they've probably been through it as well, they can actually guide you, motivate you, coach you, mentor you. And then by the time you put the phone down, you go, right, the world's a great place. I'm back in business.
And how did you go about creating this new support structure?
Now, I say to people, there are opportunities and there's mentors, there's coaches, there are friends everywhere if you choose to look for them. So I'm a great networker. Anybody knows me, and that's why I call myself an Uber connector. The people are out there and they're willing to help. So if you go out there with that mentality, nobody cares, nobody's going to help me, nobody's interested, that's exactly what you get back. If you go out there and you think people are interested, they've got something to share, every conversation is like a teaching module to me because they've got something to teach me about my business, about their journey, how can I use that? And, you know, you can meet lots of people and then you develop relationships. And just by talking to people, listening to people, sharing, that's the greatest thing about building a support structure. You are, as they say, the people you talk to the most, the 5 people or 7 people you talk to the most. So that's really important when you think about who am I talking to? What are the types of conversation we're having? Are they empowering me or disempowering me? That's the key.
Yeah, that is so key. And I think so often the people, as you said, the people that are around us, our friends, our family, perhaps aren't in business or have never had that experience. And so they're scared for you. And so they just transmit their fear directly to you. And of course, you don't need more fear than you already have.
That's right. We've got enough of that. And you know, what's interesting, I always say to people, you don't know what it's like when you're waiting to get paid as a small or micro business owner. You're waiting to get paid, especially if you work for big companies. And then they've gone on holiday. Now, only somebody in the same position as you understands when you say, they've gone on holiday and not paid me. And you're just like, oh. Whereas if you say to somebody who's in a job, they're like, well, what? They've gone on holiday. But they don't realise the impact it has on you. And it's just little things like that. They're not big things, but it's lots of those little things that could send you over the edge.
Yes, definitely. So was there a tipping point as you were building this business network where things went from just struggling to build it to flowing?
Interestingly enough, I started well.
Good.
So I didn't have any problems. I started well. I had a great contract with an automobile company, massive automobile company. Went in there. They gave me 1 site to work with. I ended up with 5 sites. And then their other automobile company said, well, we want you to come and work with you. And then I got into the business part of it. So it just flowed beautifully. And then about 5 years ago, a personal issue happened, which impacted on my professional side. And that started to have a domino effect, a very negative domino effect. And then we had the coalition. And then I lost every single one of my contracts. So for me, that was a tipping point in reverse.
Yes.
Because then I said, oh, I'm going to have to get a job, which was really frightening for me because then I'd made myself unemployable.
Yes. There is a point of no return.
Yeah, there is a point. And I just kept thinking, oh, I'm going to have to get a JOB and, oh, it's going to be awful and I'm going to go in there and, you know, you've got to work for people who say, this is the way we do things here. And you're like, oh, God. And that's why I left in the first place. But my mum, God bless her, sort of said, no, you've worked too hard. Don't panic. do what you need to do to keep this business. If you need help, I'll help you, but do not give up your business and get a job. And actually, that's all I needed to hear.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, what would Madonna do? Reinvention of Miss Brown. So I looked at what is it that really is important to me. So I focused on who my paying customers were, the repeat customers, not the ones I thought were my customers. I did a stakeholder review and I pitched the products accordingly. So what did my stakeholders want that I could offer them? I again did another review and a cull of the people who was around me professionally and ditched the ones that were really just dragging on me. And then I launched an Evolve program. And interestingly enough, one of my mentors said to me, what is it that people keep asking you for? And a lot of it was this sort of mentoring. You know, you've done really well. How have you stayed in the business so long? What have you learned? What can you teach me? And I just thought, well, what are the 6 things that keep showing up in business all the time that can hinder, impede, break, bankrupt a business? And I came up with a program called Evolve because that's what I wanted to do at that time, was to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And I started on my personal website because then I thought, really, people just wanted to know how I did it in a pragmatic way. They didn't want to do a master's. They didn't want to do an MBA in business. They wanted something practical, pragmatic, and something that worked. And so I set up the business mastery program for Evolve and my personal website. And then I started to think about business models. Now, what are the business models that I'm using that I've just taken for granted? And how do I formalize those so that now I have a consistent behavior in my business and I'm following something formal? Because there becomes a point in your business, you start off and it's like having that lovely little baby and it's like, oh, I really love it. Oh, I'm really emotional. And then it becomes a little sort of toddler and you walk with it and grow with it. And then it becomes a teenager. And then finally, you've got to let it go. And you have to think differently. And it's looking at the different life stages of your business and understanding how you have to react and behave. And the longer you're in business, you're going to have to get formal. You're going to have to put structures in place. You're going to have business models because now the business is growing and you're going to take it into a different direction. And your motivators are different. Your demands are different. Your goals are different. And the results that you're looking for are completely different.
That is such a fantastic analogy because I think so many people get to that point in their business where it starts growing and it's like a snowball and it gets out of control and they just, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And they don't even know that they need systems. They just don't know how to deal with it. And it just can be such a huge struggle. I've seen it in so many people.
And one of the things I found with my members, they have great ideas. We have meetings. Ideas are not the problem. It's how you monetize and systemize those ideas so that you have a viable business and not an expensive hobby. And that's always my mantra. Are you running an expensive hobby or a viable, profitable, sustainable business? And that's the challenge. So we talk about passion, we talk about drive, but actually you've got to create a real business, a viable business.
Exactly. So, Sonia, what would you say are your top tips on how women can achieve big breakthroughs in their business?
So I have my 6-step model, which is Evolve, and they can find out more if they go to the website. But I think, really, keep your skills and talents and experience up to date, but not only up to date, relevant for your target market. Because so many people don't know who their core audience is or who their paying and repeat paying customers are. So make sure your skills and talents are what they need because you're providing a solution. Not, oh, I like doing this. You do the things you have to do so you can do the things you want to do. So make sure your skills and talents and you're relevant in the market. Be personable. Now, I tend to work with lots of small businesses in terms of coaching and mentoring and etc. and micro business. And what I keep saying to them, unless you're Dyson, there's nothing new under the sun. So you have to be personal because people are buying you before they buy the business because somebody else is doing what you're doing. So this USP that you create, that your unique selling point, really has to be about who you are, your values, what you stand for. It's a bit like Anita Ruddock. I think she's the late Anita Ruddock is a perfect example. No matter how the business grew, Anita's personality, her values, her drivers, her motivators of fairness, equality was always embedded in the DNA of that business. And she has been successful because even though she's left this plane, her values and everything for the company still remain. And that's what we have to think about. How are we being personable in our business? Be teachable. So this goes back to learning opportunities come from everywhere. But if you stand rigid, I meet so many people who say, this is how I do business and I'm not going to change. This is the way. And you wonder why your business isn't growing. Technology, innovation, creativity, it's all evolving, it's all growing. So be part of that learning process. Big companies don't get big because they stay stuck in a particular mindset or with a particular attitude. So learn to evolve in your mentality, learn new things and introduce them gradually into your business. And that's a bit about change because you cannot be comfortable in business. I laugh at that. You cannot be comfortable. And it's understanding whether you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur. If you're an intrapreneur, stay in a company who does all the things you want to do. But as an entrepreneur, you're evolving all the time. You're going to take risks. And they don't have to be those careless, daredevil, Tom Cruise type of risks. They are, they can be calculated. They can be responsible risks. They could be well-researched risks. But change all the time. Be teachable. And that could come from people. That could be through development. Always, no matter as a small business, get trained. Always put aside something for your development. Forsake those shoes for a training course or get a book or something. Learn, I say to people, my friends might say to me, Sonia, let's go on holiday. Now, that's fine because you get paid every month. But for me, that could be an investment in new IT systems or software. So I have to manage that risk to say, actually, my development is more important than a holiday.
Yes.
Because the short-term benefits won't reap me the long-term results I want to see in my business. So manage your priorities. And all the rest you can find from my site.
No, I love what you said about being personal and how people are buying you. And I think this is such an important thing because I see women online getting upset because someone else has copied them. They've either copied, the other day a friend sent out a newsletter in the morning and a couple of hours later she received, because she was signed up to the newsletter of someone else, an exact copy of her newsletter, but tweaked for this other woman's business. And she just thought, my God, what is this person doing? And some friends were on both of the lists and they thought, what the heck is happening here? And so there are people out there that just don't know how to do their own thing, and so they copy others. But I think the important thing is to realize no matter how many people copy you, they can't copy your personality.
Exactly. And I mean, Anita Ruddock could have said, I can't compete with Procter & Gamble. I can't compete with Revlon. But because they're doing bubble bath, they're doing moisturizer. But she put her personality into it. And I think, especially if we work a lot with coaches, and I look at people who say, I'm a coach. We have events. We say, what do you do? I'm a coach. Okay.
Yes, and?
Exactly. Every time they say, I cringe inside. And I say, but what differentiates you? What's the difference that makes the difference? And I don't know, they must go to this school of, I call it social media gurus. We used to have those little salesmen going around in their little buggies selling their dodgy medicines. Now we have people on social media just selling their dodgy ideas. And people have just gravitated to it. But actually, what makes your business you? And, there's lots of networks out there, what I do. There's loads of people doing what I do. But what's the difference that makes the difference? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. And people, especially small businesses, do not underestimate the importance of personal branding.
Yes.
Work out your branding. Victoria Beckham's a great one for this. She was the laughing stock of the Spice Girls because she never smiled and everything. And one of the articles I was reading, she said, while everybody was laughing at me, I was honing my skills. And now who's laughing? So exactly. People will copy you, but you know what? It's taken all that time for them to get to where you are. You're still evolving. You're still going to do better than them. There'll always be 2 steps behind you. And don't get caught up in that. Because sometimes we're so busy. They copied this idea and they're doing what I'm doing. You're wasting energy. Just focus on your goals. Focus where you're going. and do not stop moving.
Yes, yes. And I think the whole concept of evolve is really, really important, because as individuals, we're always evolving, because we're learning, we're changing, we're getting to know ourselves better, we're peeling off the layers of crap that we might have put on through years of, working in a corporate job. And so we're always evolving. And so obviously it makes sense that our business will be evolving as well. Or it should be evolving.
It should be. I mean, if you take social media 10 years ago, look at Facebook, Twitter, these platforms are not even 20 years old.
Yeah.
And look at the way they have changed the way people do business. Look at Instagram. I wouldn't be surprised if Instagram's less than 10 years old.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But look at how they're changing business. And if we sit still, we become irrelevant. And the whole point of being in business is to become relevant, is to solve a problem for somebody. Whether it's something around your social activities, whether it's a cause, whatever it is. I always say to people when I do my branding courses, I say, look, let's take that wonderful staple garment, the beige Mac. Everybody's possessed one at one point of their life. They've gone out and bought it, or it's in the back of the wardrobe. But what's the difference between, a Kmart or a BHS beige Mac compared to a Burberry Mac?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're that beige Mac, it's okay to be the Walmart Mac or the BHS Mac because they sell. Mm-hmm. But what I might want to be the Burberry Mac, the Jaeger Mac. I might even want to be the Dax Mac. But I know what makes the difference between those different beige Macs.
Mm.
And you could say the same. If that's a bit too complicated for some people, let's take white rice. You could be fragrant rice, basmati rice, low grain rice, But you know where you are. So understand that about your business. And I always say to people, we go back to being personable. I say to people, when you leave the room, and this is what the fragrance that your business should leave, and that's the experience that they have when working with you. Are you the old brute of business or the Gucci? Decide what fragrance you are.
I love that. The fragrance of your business. So, Sonia, do you have any women business mentors? Are there any women in business who inspire you?
Oh, I'm so struggling with this because I'm one of these women. I turn up at meetings. Very often I turn up at meetings and they say, oh, women don't support women. And then that's the moment I pull out my soapbox. Mm-hmm. Say, I'm not having it. I'm not having it at all. I have been so blessed. So the first person I always mention this is Baroness Ross Howells, who I met many years ago, and just said to her one day, she was a chair of one of the advisory groups where I worked. And being the pushy little person I am, I sort of went up to her and said, oh, would you come to my house for dinner? And she said, yes. So she came along to my little basement flat at the time, and we just had a conversation. And I just remember this, I'd never met a baroness. I'd never met a baroness before, and she'd come to my house and she just said, Sonia, whatever you need. And she gave me the best advice. She said, Sonia, create your ideal business and be careful of the people around you. So that was the start. But since then, I have to say, there have been so many women. And I wrote a list, and I felt unfair because I just thought of all the other ones I couldn't remember from the journey. But, there's politically, I've had the opportunity to work with women. So Theresa May was amazing when she was in shadow government, and she's far too busy now as the Home Office Secretary of State. But when she was in opposition, she was such a supporter for the work that we were doing in my network. We had Margaret Hodge. I had the pleasure of being on a forum with her a couple of weeks ago for International Women's Month. And I said, oh, Margaret, you wouldn't remember me, but you were like a Rockweiler when you were Minister of Women. And I really admired her determination and her gutsy approach to everything. And you could see her doing that in her new role. There's Mary McLeod, Margot James, Dawn Butler, Steve Norris. I remember when Steve Norris was running for mayor, and I got to work with him twice he came and spoke. He was just amazing. So Baroness Jenkins, and then she introduced me to somebody called Rona Fairhead, who's at the BBC. She was the first woman in years. I was like, wow. Vanessa Vallely of We Are the City, Sharon Gunn of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, England and Wales. And mentoring doesn't have to be formal.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It could be a cup of coffee. It could be just one session. But there's something about people that you have to be able to say, if I want to be mentored, what is it that they possess that I want from them? What I want to learn, not just what I want because I want. Because, we're in this world of expectation where we think we can have everything and not do the work. But there's things about these people that you can learn that makes you a better you.
Mm-hmm.
One of the greatest people who mentored me formally was Sir Nicholas Montague, who was the former chairman of the Inland Revenue. I heard him speak at an event about diversity, and he's such an Oxbridge and well-bred, and I thought, this will be a laugh. And I was blown away. And I spent 4 months badgering his diary secretary. And I created this event at my workplace so we could get him there. I had no authority, but I just wanted to meet this man. because of that, I was able to get him to mentor me for years, and he still mentors me today. But there's so many great women, Baroness Firma of Leicestershire, even conversations with Doreen Lawrence, Baroness Lawrence now. And what people shouldn't be afraid of is to aim high. We have LinkedIn now, so there is no excuse that you cannot connect to anybody. But go there, be prepared, because I think that's the problem, because people get excited, because, I'm going to meet this person, ooh. And then they say, well, what is it you want? Oh, I just wanted to have a coffee with you and just to talk. Do you know how valuable their time is? But more importantly, you've missed out on that opportunity. I'm working with Gerard Donovan from Noble Manhattan. Turned up at an event with him that he was hosting and ended up having a conversation. And because of that, he has just helped me to focus on my personal business and my personal brand in a way that I would never have done if I hadn't met him. So mentors are everywhere. Don't be defined by sex, gender, class, culture. You can learn something from everybody, and it can be through LinkedIn. You can meet people from events. You can meet people in the supermarket. You can meet people queuing up in a restaurant. You just meet people everywhere. And that's where being personable is very important.
Yes, I agree. So, Sonia, how can other women in business benefit from working with you?
Oh, this is the exciting bit. I love business. So I've created a business mastery program, which they can access through the website at soniabrown.co.uk. And basically what I'm looking at is how people can take ideas and turn them into viable working businesses. And this is done through looking at key business issues, issues that impact your business, not the fluffy stuff. We don't do fluffy. But using my networks, my ideas, and more importantly, my commitment to their success, we look at these business issues by working with them through e-classes, e-courses, and obviously coaching, peer coaching. And they can come in at light touches with the booster sessions, or they can come in with more in-depth training. And we look at information gathering, strategy, techniques, tools, advice and ideas, but more importantly, putting the fun back into business.
I love that. So, Sonia, where can people find you online? You've mentioned your website.
Okay, so you can join up at Sonia, Sonia Brown.co.uk, all the W's. You can connect with me on Twitter at Sonia Talks, Sonia Talks, and on Facebook, Sonia Brown MBE. But go to the website, soniabrown.co.uk. Everything will be there. Just sign up. We're going to be having some webinars, regular webinars, so that people get an introduction of what we're doing, looking at key themes. Again, I'm about transformation, but more importantly, it's the breakthroughs that matter.
Yes.
Because oftentimes we can stay stuck in an idea, stuck in a behavior that kind of cripples our business, and then we lose the love, we lose the joy, we lose the bliss of being in business. But more importantly, I'm going to bring that joy and that breakthrough into your business.
Oh, I love that. And thank you so much for joining us today. This has been absolutely fantastic and very, very useful tips. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Holly. And, just everybody, there's a business in everyone. And then it's always remember it's their gift to the world. So
Yes.
I'm looking forward to working with them.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for listening. And remember to visit readytobloom.com/94 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Ready to Bloom podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's guests, including links for topics that were discussed at readytobloom.com. That's bloom.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave us a quick review of this podcast. Thank you so much.